Chapter 7 is called the 5-3 Game Plan for Learning. So we're going to talk about various different learning strategies you can use to process information. Here are the objectives for this chapter and the takeaways and things you should know by the end. There are 3 different types of knowledge. These are all ways that we all learn and take in information. There's declarative knowledge, procedural knowledge, and conditional knowledge. Your declarative knowledge is your knowledge of facts, things that you have learned, that you can state, that you can declare are true, like the letters of the alphabet, or 2 plus 2 equals 4, or the capital of the state of Texas is Austin. Those are all parts of your declarative knowledge. There are things you can say, declare. Procedural knowledge is your knowledge about how to do something. It's something you do that's a procedure you perform, like riding a bicycle would be a part of your procedural knowledge, or driving a car, or how to make a cake. Your conditional knowledge is your ability to know how and when to use various different forms of knowledge, such as declarative or procedural. So if you get an assignment to write a research paper, knowing the steps to complete to get that research paper done is part of your conditional knowledge. It means I can take everything that I've learned in the past and now can apply it to this situation to get my needs met. There are also 3 different strategies for learning. There's surface learning, deep learning, and achievement learning. Surface learners are people who do enough just to get by. They only learn on the surface. They only do what they need to do to get a passing grade. So if you've ever found yourself saying, I don't care what I make in this class as long as I get a 70, that means you're engaging in surface learning. Deep learning is learning that takes place for the pure pleasure of learning. This is when you go a lot deeper on the subject. This is somebody who wants to learn and acquire information. This is somebody who may have, learned something in class today about the Taj Mahal, and then they go home and they do further research on the Taj Mahal. They are engaging in deep learning. Achievement learning is learning that occurs when you try to learn so that you receive a specific targeted goal. And you're going to earn a grade, but you may not retain the information. So think about if you've ever been in a class, you didn't like the class, but you want to make all A's. So your target might be, I'm going to make an A in this class no matter what. So I'm going to try to achieve, but maybe I'm not so much focused on retaining the content for later use. Here are some different ways, some things that people who engage in surface, deep, or achievement learning might do in order to get their needs met, such as surface learners just scanning the textbook instead of reading it, whereas a person engaging in deep learning are going to read the textbook thoroughly, they're going to take notes, they're going to annotate, they're going to highlight, and then somebody who's engaging in achievement learning, they're going to follow all the instructions the teacher sets forth, and they're going to make sure they turn in everything on time, but they may not even read because they're just trying to achieve. Selective attention occurs when we focus our attention on something specific and we ignore everything else. When you are in class and you're able to focus on your work, even though students around you are talking, you are engaging in selective attention. You are choosing what to focus your attention on. And sometimes you have to do that. When you listen aggressively, though, that's when you listen with intense focus, not just to what somebody says verbally, but to also what they're saying non-verbally. You're looking at their body language and their cues because 90% of communication is nonverbal. You have to pay attention to what people do and what people show you just as much as what they say. It's also important to assign value to whatever you do. That means you've got to have a why that you're doing it. So if you really want that information to go from your short-term memory into your long-term memory, you've got to make it meaningful. That means you've got to say to yourself, why is this information important for me to know and how can this benefit me in the future? Rehearsal is a good strategy to use to learn information. And really, it's the number one way people learn information. It's when you go over the information over and over and over again until you memorize it. Sometimes you can rehearse by using note cards. You can recite it out loud. You could listen to a recording of it, but remember, don't record anybody's voice without permission. And you can also explain it in different ways. Remember, the way you're going to retain most information is to teach it to others. You could also use association to learn information. That means you link the new information you've learned with something you've already known or experienced. So if you think about what you're doing in human geography, okay, I need to study these note cards in human geography so that I can ace that AP exam. It's just like when I'm in volleyball practice. I go to practice so that I'll do well in the game. So studying for human geography is really just like practicing for my volleyball game. And you can associate the two so you can see just how important academics is just as much as your athletics. There's also something called the 5-3 method for learning. This is when you engage in some study splits. You study for 5 minutes, write down 3 important pieces of information, then let an hour pass, let 2 hours pass, let 15 minutes pass, and then you do it again. Study for 5 minutes, write down 3 important pieces of information. So it's just a way to break up your studying down so you don't feel like you're having to go over too much all at once. And lastly, the thing we need to talk about is how you retain information. So you are going to remember only 5% of what you hear in a lecture. So that means you can't just go to class and listen to the teacher. You've got to do more than that. You'll remember 10% of what you read, 20% of what you see and hear, 30% of what you get to do hands-on, what you get to do as demonstration. Well, if you watch a demonstration, you watch somebody else doing it. You'll remember 50% of what's discussed in a group. That's why classroom talk is so important in the early college high school program. And 75% of what you do. So that's your hands-on practice by doing. But you'll also remember 90% of what you teach others. So it's not your teachers are the expert. It's that they've gone over this so many times that they really know the content. So you want to do the same whenever you're studying for your classes. And that's everything you need to know in Chapter 7, the 5-3 method for learning.